Now we are going to discuss carcinoma lung, and carcinoma lung is also known as bronchogenic carcinoma. So carcinoma lung, the other name for carcinoma lung is bronchogenic carcinoma. Okay, bronchogenic. So directly or indirectly, the origin is from bronchi. So generally, it arises from respiratory epithelium of bronchi, bronchioles and alveoli. So bronchogenic carcinoma, it arises from respiratory epithelium of bronchi, bronchioles and alveoli, right? Now see, majority of carcinoma lung arises from lung hilum, but there are exceptions like bronchoalveolar carcinoma and certain adenocarcinoma. So most of the carcinoma lung are going to arise from lung hilum. What are the exceptions? The exceptions are bronchoalveolar carcinoma and certain adenocarcinomas. Otherwise, majorities are going to arise from lung hilum. Now, there are three important questions which are frequently asked in relation to carcinoma lung. First, what is the most common type of lung neoplasm? So, most common type of neoplasm of lung, it's carcinoma lung. Second, what is the most common visceral malignancy worldwide? Carcinoma lung. And which malignancy is responsible for most of the deaths? So most common malignancy responsible for death, and that is also carcinoma lung. Okay, so three important questions. So first, what is the most common type of lung neoplasm? Second, what is the most common visceral malignancy worldwide? Visceral malignancy worldwide. And third, most common malignancy responsible for death. Most common malignancy responsible for death. Clear? So for all these, what is the correct answer? The correct answer is carcinoma lung. So these are the three questions which are frequently asked in exam. Clear? Most common type of lung neoplasm, most common visceral malignancy worldwide, and most common malignancy responsible for death, that is carcinoma lung. Now see the risk factors for carcinoma lung. So you must be knowing that there is one established risk factor, and that is smoking. So smoking is active or passive. Both of these are going to increase the risk. It means if you are not a smoker but your partner is smoker, so that is passive smoking, and that also increases the risk. Okay, so see the risk factors for carcinoma lung. So first is smoking, both active as well as passive. Active as well as passive. Second, if there is air pollution, especially which component? The component is radon. So air pollution, which component is mainly responsible? Is the radon. Clear? Apart from this, if there is exposure to uranium, nickel, and we discuss what is asbestos. So if there is exposure to uranium, nickel and asbestos. Clear? Right? In malignant mesothelioma, we discussed that for carcinoma lung, asbestos and smoking, both of these are having synergistic effect. So what is the problem? If patient is a smoker also, asbestos and smoking, these are having synergistic effect for carcinoma lung. These are having synergistic effect for carcinoma lung, especially for adenocarcinoma. If there is presence of old infarct or scar in the lung, it increases the risk of adenocarcinoma. So if there is old infarct or scar, this is going to increase the risk of adenocarcinoma. Clear? And if there is ionizing radiation exposure also increases the risk. So it's the ionizing radiation exposure. Clear? These are the risk factors for carcinoma lung. Now there is one question which is asked in surgery also and asked in pathology also, that what are the oncogenic abnormalities seen in small cell carcinoma lung, small cell, and non-small cell carcinoma lung. Okay, so see, oncogenic abnormalities. This is asked in pathology as well as in the surgery. So oncogenic abnormalities, what are the oncogenic abnormalities seen in small cell lung cancer, SCLC, and non-small cell lung cancer? So in small cell lung cancer, there is overexpression of telomerase, BCL2 and MYC. So here there is overexpression of, mnemonic is TBM. How to remember? TBM. So T means telomerase, B means BCL2, and M means MYC. Okay, but in non-small cell lung cancer there is overexpression of TBR. T means telomerase, BCL2, R means RAS. Okay, so here there is overexpression of telomerase, BCL2 and R, and that is RAS. Clear? So how to remember? TBM for small cell lung cancer and TBR for non-small cell lung cancer, right? Now see, if we see the cases of adenocarcinoma, in more than 90% patients of adenocarcinoma, there is KRAS mutation. So important point here, RAS. So KRAS mutation. This KRAS mutation is seen in more than 90% patients of adenocarcinoma. Clear? So all these are important questions. Now there are 4 terms which are asked, that what are central tumors, what are the peripheral tumors, what are the tumors which are abutting chest wall, and what are the apical tumors in relation to carcinoma lung. So see the definition first. So here you can see, if the tumor is within 2 cm of proximal bronchial tree or 2 cm of great vessels, here you can see the tumor within 2 cm of proximal bronchial tree or great vessels, this is known as central. And whenever the tumor is within 1 cm of chest wall, if the tumor is within 1 cm of chest wall, this is known as tumor abutting the chest wall. And whatever the tumors which are located between central tumors and tumors abutting the chest wall, that's known as peripheral. And what is apical tumors? If we are going to draw a transverse line just touching the arch of aorta, so this is the transverse line. So any tumor which is located above this transverse line, and that is known as apical. Okay, so what is this central tumor? The tumor located, this tumor is located within 2 cm of proximal bronchial tree or great vessels. Now see, tumor abutting the chest wall, this is tumor abutting the chest wall. So this tumor abutting the chest wall, it is located within 1 cm of chest wall. So located within 1 cm of chest wall. And whatever the tumors which are located between central and tumors abutting the chest wall, those tumors are known as peripheral tumors. And what are the apical tumors? Apical tumors, these are located above the arch of aorta, above aortic arch. So there is a line, transverse line, which is passing just above the arch of aorta, and if the tumor is located above that line, this is known as apical. Clear? So central, tumors abutting the chest wall, peripheral and apical. These are 4 types. Now it's very easy to understand. See, if central tumors are there, generally small cell lung cancer and squamous cell carcinoma. These are central tumors. And if we are talking about peripheral tumors, adenocarcinoma and large cell carcinoma, these are peripheral tumors. Now see, smoking is a risk factor for central tumors. So if there is central tumor, smoking is a risk factor, and generally smoking is not a risk factor for peripheral tumors. Okay, so see, what are the central tumors? So in central tumors, we are going to include small cell lung cancer and squamous cell carcinoma. Okay, and in peripheral tumors, we are going to include adenocarcinoma and large cell carcinoma. So it's adeno and large cell carcinoma. Simple. Now see, for central tumors, what? Smoking is a risk factor. Smoking is a risk factor. Clear? But for peripheral tumor, smoking is not a risk factor. Generally, it's not a risk factor. Okay. Now, generally, central tumors are small cell lung cancer and squamous cell carcinoma. But squamous cell carcinoma can be peripheral also. It can be peripheral also, right? And generally peripheral cancers are adenocarcinoma and large cell cancer. Now see, it's very easy to understand the symptoms in carcinoma lung. So the symptoms in carcinoma lung, this is because of three things. First, if there is endobronchial growth, what happens? These patients will be having what? Cough, stridor, dyspnea, wheeze, hemoptysis. And if there is involvement of peripheral chest wall, so if there is involvement of chest wall or pleura, these patients will be having pain. And sometimes there is regional spread. So suppose there is involvement of midline structures like trachea, esophagus, recurrent laryngeal nerve. So these patients will be having dyspnea, dysphagia, hoarseness of voice. Sometimes the apical tumor is involving C8 and T1 root value of brachial plexus. So this condition is known as Pancoast syndrome. In certain patients, there is involvement of cervical sympathetic trunk. So patients will be having what? Horner's syndrome. And especially the small cell lung cancer and squamous cell carcinoma, it is going to compress the superior vena cava. So there can be superior vena cava syndrome, and because of regional spread, there can be malignant pleural effusion also. Clear? So the symptoms can be because of endobronchial growth, because of involvement of chest and pleura, and because of regional spread. Okay, so see what are the symptoms. So clinical features. First question which is asked, that what is the most common symptom of carcinoma lung? Clear? And you must be knowing it is cough. So most common symptom is cough, followed by dyspnea, followed by chest pain, followed by hemoptysis. So it is followed by dyspnea, followed by chest pain, followed by hemoptysis. Clear? So you will not forget this cough, which is the most common symptom. So how to remember these three? Dyspnea, chest pain and hemoptysis. So the most common symptom is cough followed by DCH. It is the cough followed by DCH. Dyspnea, cough, chest pain and hemoptysis. Now see another important question which was asked many times, that which artery is responsible for hemoptysis? Clear? So these tumors are having endobronchial growth, and because of endobronchial growth there is hemoptysis. So growth is endobronchial. So which artery? The bleeding is from bronchial arteries. So there is bleeding from bronchial arteries. Clear? So bleeding from bronchial arteries are responsible for hemoptysis. Another important question, that what is the definition of massive hemoptysis? So whenever there is expectoration of more than 600 ml of blood in 24 hours. How much? More than 600 ml blood in 24 hours. That's a massive hemoptysis. So what's the definition of massive hemoptysis? So here, expectoration of more than 600 ml of blood in 24 hours. So more than 600 ml. This question was asked in AIIMS. Clear? Now we are going to discuss the group of symptoms because of endobronchial growth, because of involvement of chest and pleura, and because of regional spread. Okay. So the symptoms are divided into three categories. First, because of endobronchial growth. Clear? So we discussed that because of endobronchial growth, what happens? There is obstruction. So there is cough, there is stridor, there is wheeze, there is dyspnea, and whenever there is bleeding from the bronchial arteries, what happens? There is hemoptysis. So there is hemoptysis. Clear? First category. Second, the symptoms because of involvement of chest and pleura. Okay, chest and pleura. So because of involvement of chest and pleura, what's the problem? There is pain. So it leads to pain, right? And the most important is what? The symptoms because of regional spread, because these are questions which are frequently asked. So symptoms because of regional spread, and it's very easy to understand. So if there is involvement of midline structures, like there is involvement of trachea, esophagus, and recurrent laryngeal nerve. Clear? So if there is involvement of trachea, there is dyspnea. If there is involvement of esophagus, there is dysphagia. And if there is involvement of recurrent laryngeal nerve, there is hoarseness of voice. Second, in cases of peripheral tumors or apical tumors, whenever there is involvement of C8 or T1, and this leads to Pancoast syndrome. The tumor is known as Pancoast tumor. Symptoms are known as Pancoast syndrome. We will discuss in detail. There is involvement of root value, generally C8T1, sometimes C8T1 to T2. One. Second, these patients have Horner's syndrome. Horner's syndrome. And what's the cause of Horner's syndrome? There is involvement of cervical sympathetic trunk. Okay. Third, you must be knowing that small cell lung cancer, it presents as a large mass near hilum with mediastinal lymphadenopathy. So if there is large mass near hilum with mediastinal lymphadenopathy, it is going to compress what? Superior vena cava. Some patients who are having squamous cell carcinoma also, since this tumor is also central, it is going to compress superior vena cava. And because of compression or obstruction of superior vena cava, there is superior vena cava syndrome. So what happens? These patients have superior vena cava syndrome because of obstruction. Clear? For superior vena cava syndrome, which malignancy is most commonly responsible? Small cell lung cancer followed by squamous cell carcinoma. Small cell lung cancer followed by squamous cell carcinoma. And these patients also develop malignant pleural effusion because of regional spread. So there is malignant pleural effusion. Clear? So these are the symptoms related to carcinoma lung. Now coming to the site of metastasis. So see, in certain books it's written that the most common site of metastasis from carcinoma lung is adrenal. But if we see the 11th edition of DVita, in that it's clearly mentioned that the most common site of metastasis from carcinoma lung is brain, followed by bone, followed by liver, followed by adrenal, followed by lung. Right? So see the metastasis. This is favorite topic of examiners. Metastasis in carcinoma lung. Okay. So question is the most common site of metastasis from carcinoma lung. And you have to remember, this is very important. It's brain, followed by bone, followed by liver, followed by adrenal. Can you see adrenal is on 4th number, followed by lungs. So there is lung to lung metastasis, right? So how to remember? The mnemonic is there. It's BB Lal. Can you see? So it's BB Lal. Brain, bone, liver, adrenal, lung. We discussed that what is the most common malignancy responsible for death worldwide? It's carcinoma lung. Why? Because carcinoma lung is notorious for metastasis. In body, it can involve any organ. And carcinoma lung is the most common primary for metastasis to 6 organs. It's the most common primary for metastasis to 6 organs. So what are those 6 organs? The mnemonic is keypaps. Okay, so another important point, that carcinoma lung, this is most common primary for metastasis to 6 organs. Keypaps, mnemonic is keypaps. Clear? So keypaps, K means kidney, E esophagus, P pancreas, A adrenal, B brain, S skin. Okay, so see, this is kidney, this is esophagus, pancreas, adrenal, brain and skin. Okay, so question, out of these, what is the most common site of metastasis? So we discussed the most common site of metastasis is what? It's the brain. After that, what are the paraneoplastic syndromes associated with carcinoma lung? And this is also frequently asked in exam. Paraneoplastic syndromes associated with carcinoma lung. So see the list. Paraneoplastic syndromes associated with carcinoma lung. Clear? So first, what are the cardiovascular paraneoplastic syndromes? So these patients have thrombophlebitis and non-bacterial thrombotic endocarditis. So it includes thrombophlebitis, okay, and non-bacterial thrombotic endocarditis. Clear? Now see the metabolic paraneoplastic syndromes. Metabolic, it depends on the type of malignancy. Okay, now imagine we are discussing small cell lung cancer. So in small cell lung cancer, there is secretion of which substances? Clear? So there is secretion of, increased secretion of ACTH. Clear? There is increased secretion of antidiuretic hormone ADH and increased secretion of calcitonin. Clear? So if there is increased secretion of ACTH, it can lead to Cushing. If there is increased secretion of ADH, it can lead to syndrome of inappropriate ADH secretion. And if there is increased secretion of calcitonin, it can cause hypocalcemia. So this can lead to hypocalcemia. Now see, in carcinoma lung, you will find hypocalcemia also, and you can find hypercalcemia also. So in which malignancy you will find hypercalcemia? The malignancy which is going to secrete parathyroid hormone related peptide PTHRP. And what's that malignancy? Is the squamous cell carcinoma. Okay, so if the patient is having squamous cell carcinoma, it is going to secrete parathyroid hormone related peptide, and because of this the patients are going to develop hypercalcemia. So what is the most common type of carcinoma lung associated with hypercalcemia? Squamous cell carcinoma. Okay, what are the other paraneoplastic manifestations? These patients can have acanthosis nigricans. Acanthosis nigricans. Clear? So in which case you will find this acanthosis nigricans? So here the answer is hidden, ACA. So what's this? Adenocarcinoma. Okay, so this acanthosis nigricans, this is seen in ACA, and that is adenocarcinoma. Clear? It is also associated with carcinoid syndrome, erythrocytosis, carcinoid syndrome, erythrocytosis. Clear? And there are neuromuscular paraneoplastic syndromes also. So see, what are the neuromuscular paraneoplastic syndromes? So it is going to include autonomic neuropathy and Lambert-Eaton syndrome. Autonomic neuropathy and Lambert-Eaton syndrome. Clear? And both of these are more commonly associated with which malignancy? Small cell lung cancer. Autonomic neuropathy and Lambert-Eaton syndrome. These are more commonly associated with small cell lung cancer. And there was another question related to cerebellar degeneration. So this is also seen in carcinoma lung. Cerebellar degeneration. Clear? So this is the list of paraneoplastic syndromes which is associated with carcinoma lung. Now see how we are going to make the diagnosis. So the investigation of choice for diagnosis is biopsy. So how we are going to take the biopsy? Since most of these are having endobronchial growth, so we go for endobronchial biopsy. So how we perform this bronchial or endobronchial biopsy? We perform fiber optic bronchoscopy. So via fiber optic bronchoscopy we perform bronchial or endobronchial biopsy. Okay. So how we are going to make the diagnosis? Investigation of choice for diagnosis, and that's biopsy. So what kind of biopsy? Bronchial or endobronchial? Bronchial biopsy or endobronchial. Okay. So how we take this bronchial or endobronchial biopsy? With the help of fiber optic bronchoscopy. So we perform fiber optic bronchoscopy. Okay. Now see the second important point, and this is also asked in exam, that what is the best investigation for diagnosis and staging? Diagnosis and staging. So the best investigation for both diagnosis and staging, that is PET-CT. So if the question is asked that what is the best investigation for diagnosis and staging, clear? So here the answer is PET-CT. Okay. So if the question is investigation of choice for diagnosis, that's biopsy, and in best investigation for diagnosis and staging, and that is PET-CT. There was one question in NEET 2020 related to 8th AJCC TNM classification of carcinoma lung. So let's discuss 8th AJCC TNM classification of carcinoma lung. 8th AJCC TNM classification, okay, of carcinoma lung. So it's very easy to remember. If we see from T1A to T2B, we are just supposed to add 1 centimeter. So T1A is size up to 1 centimeter, T1B is more than 1 to 2, and T1C more than 2 to 3. T2A more than 3 to 4, and T2B more than 4 to 5 centimeter. Now, if we see T2, first, if the size is more than 3 to 5, we have to include it in T2. Okay. And if you're not bothered about size, irrespective of size, if there is involvement of main bronchus without involvement of carina, so involvement of main bronchus without involvement of carina, or there is involvement of visceral pleura, clear, or there is association or patient is having atelectasis or obstructive pneumonitis, so all these will be included in T2. So what? Involvement of main bronchus, involvement of visceral pleura, or there is association with atelectasis or obstructive pneumonitis. So all these will be included in T2. If we see T3, here in T3, the size of tumor should be more than 5 to 7 centimeter. Or there is direct invasion of parietal pleura, parietal pericardium, chest wall, or phrenic nerve. So if there is direct invasion of parietal pleura, parietal pericardium, chest wall, phrenic nerve. So this is included in T3. Or sometimes, suppose there is a lung cancer or tumor, and there is another tumor, means there is a separate tumor in the same lobe. So if there is a separate tumor in the same lobe, it is included in T3. And imagine a second situation. If there is a separate tumor in different lobe, then it will be included into T4. So I'm repeating. If there is another tumor or separate tumor in same lobe, it is included in T3. There is a separate tumor in same lung, means in same lung in some other lobe, it is included in T4. And if there is a separate tumor in contralateral lung, then it is included in metastasis, and that is M1. Clear? So here you can see that there is a separate tumor nodule in the same lobe. Okay, so in T3 the size should be more than 5 to 7 centimeter, or involvement of parietal pleura, parietal pericardium, chest wall of phrenic nerve, or there is a separate tumor nodule in the same lobe. Now see the T4. So T4, if the size is more than 7 centimeter, it is included in T4. Or whatever be the tumor size, if there is invasion of trachea, heart, esophagus, vertebral body, carina, recurrent laryngeal nerve, great vessels, diaphragm, mediastinum, all these are included in T4. So how to remember? The mnemonic is the GDM's VCR. Mnemonic is the GDM VCR. Clear? So it's trachea, heart, esophagus, vertebral body, carina, recurrent laryngeal nerve, great vessels, diaphragm, mediastinum. Or here you can see, if there is a separate tumor nodule, there is a separate tumor nodule in different ipsilateral lobe. So in a different lobe in ipsilateral lung. Clear? So this is T4. And if there is a separate tumor in contralateral lung, and then this is included in metastasis. So this was T1 to T4. Now see the lymph node metastasis. Lymph node metastasis is further divided into N1, N2, N3. So if you see in N1, there is metastasis in ipsilateral peribronchial and or ipsilateral hilar lymph node and intrapulmonary nodes. So there is metastasis in ipsilateral peribronchial and or ipsilateral hilar and intrapulmonary nodes. And what is included in N2, there is metastasis in ipsilateral, mediastinal and or subcarinal lymph node. Okay, and if there is metastasis in contralateral mediastinal or contralateral hilar lymph node, so here you can see it is included in N3. What else is included in N3? If there is ipsilateral or contralateral scalene lymph node involvement or supraclavicular lymph node involvement. Clear? So all these are included in N3. Metastasis is also divided into 3: M1A, M1B, M1C. See the types. So if you see the metastasis, see the first thing in M1A, if there is a separate tumor nodule in contralateral lobe. So in contralateral lung, if there is a separate tumor, so it is a type of metastasis. Whenever there is tumor with pleural or pericardial nodule, or there is malignant pleural or pericardial effusion, all these are included in M1. So broadly speaking, if you see this M1A represents intrathoracic metastasis. So intrathoracic metastasis, so you saw involvement of contralateral lung, pleural pericardial nodules, malignant pleural pericardial effusion. So all these represents intrathoracic metastasis, and that's included in M1A. If it is extrathoracic, but there is single extrathoracic metastasis, that is M1B, and if there are multiple extrathoracic metastasis, that is M1C. So single extrathoracic metastasis in single or multiple organs, that is M1B, and if there are multiple extrathoracic metastasis in one or more than one organ, means single or multiple organs, so this is M1C. And what was the question in NEET? They asked that the size of tumor is 1.5 centimeter Yes, what is the T staging? So it's what T1B. So this is the TNM classification. Now coming to the treatment of carcinoma lung. See, it's very extensive. We are going to discuss the management of operable non-small cell lung cancer because this is frequently asked. Okay. So only one aspect we are going to discuss here. So we are going to discuss the treatment of operable non-small cell lung cancer. So since it is operable, in most of these surgery will be done. Okay. So see, if the stage is 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B. Stage 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B. In these cases, we go for surgical excision. So surgical excision of tumor is done. Now, if the patient is having this stage 2, in these patients, we have to give adjuvant chemotherapy. So after surgery, what else? We give adjuvant chemotherapy in stage 2. Clear? So after surgical resection, adjuvant chemotherapy is given in stage 2. Now see, if the patient is having stage 3A malignancy with minimal N2 involvement, clear? So in these patients again, first we have to downstage the tumor. So how we are going to downstage the tumor? By neoadjuvant chemotherapy. So we give neoadjuvant chemotherapy. After that we go for surgery and we perform complete mediastinal lymph node dissection. Surgery with complete mediastinal lymph node dissection. Okay. Now imagine if the patient is having N2 involvement. Here there is minimal N2 involvement. If patient is having N2 involvement, so in these patients, apart from surgery, means apart from neoadjuvant chemotherapy followed by surgery with mediastinal lymph node dissection, what else is given? We give post-operative radiotherapy. Clear? So let's see again. For stage 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, we go for surgical excision. If the stage is 2, we have to add chemotherapy in post-operative period, that is adjuvant chemotherapy. And if the stage is 3A with minimal N2 involvement, neoadjuvant chemotherapy is given followed by surgical dissection with complete mediastinal lymph node dissection. And if there is N2 involvement, then post-operative radiotherapy is also given. So these are operable cases of non-small cell lung cancer, and this is how we are going to manage. Another question which is frequently asked in medicine, in surgery, in pathology, and that is, what is the WHO classification of carcinoma lung? According to WHO classification, there are 4 types of carcinoma lung. One is adenocarcinoma. So second is squamous cell carcinoma. Third is small cell carcinoma, and fourth is large cell carcinoma. Adeno, squamous, small cell, large cell. Okay. We discussed that there are central tumors and peripheral tumors. What were the malignancies included in central tumors? So squamous cell carcinoma and small cell carcinoma. So squamous and small cell carcinoma, these are central. So smoking is a risk factor for these malignancies. And adenocarcinoma and large cell carcinoma, these are peripheral. So generally smoking is not a risk factor. Okay, one by one we are going to discuss. First, the most common type worldwide, it's adenocarcinoma, and most common type in India is the squamous cell carcinoma. So first we are going to discuss adenocarcinoma lung. Okay, very important. So this is most common type. We discussed that this is peripheral. So since it's peripheral, what? It is not associated with smoking, and that's why it is seen in non-smokers. And if you see the patient profile, yes, it's totally against the malignancies. Generally, in majority of malignancies, what we have seen, that most of the malignancies are common in males, elderly males, and which male smokers. And here you can see it is seen in non-smokers, females and young patients. This is frequently asked in exam. So it's peripheral, more common in non-smokers, females and young patients. Now the problem, though this tumor is having slow growth, the tumor itself is having slow growth, but adenocarcinoma in situ, what? Adenocarcinoma in situ, which was previously known as bronchioloalveolar carcinoma. Adenocarcinoma in situ, which was previously known as bronchioloalveolar carcinoma, this is having tendency of aerogenous dissemination. So what? Spread via airway, that is aerogenous dissemination. So if there is aerogenous dissemination, what will happen? This tumor is having propensity to metastasize to contralateral lung or opposite lung. So in adenocarcinoma in situ, there is aerogenous dissemination, and because of this aerogenous dissemination, means transmission via airway, there is metastasis to contralateral lung. So it can metastasize to contralateral lung. Clear? Which special type? Adenocarcinoma in situ. In short, previously it was known as bronchioloalveolar carcinoma, and in short that is known as BAC. So you have to remember this. There is a special classification which is used for adenocarcinoma. This is one liner question. And what's the name? Noguchi classification. Clear? So there is a special classification used for adenocarcinoma, and this is Noguchi classification. Clear? Now see the other special features or other unique things, the important points related to adenocarcinoma. It is associated with clubbing. Adenocarcinoma, we discussed, it is associated with acanthosis nigricans. Okay, and you must be knowing that there is migratory superficial thrombophlebitis associated with malignancy. We discussed most common malignancy associated carcinoma pancreas, but carcinoma lung is also associated. Which variety? Adenocarcinoma. So what? There is thrombophlebitis. Okay, which type? It's the migratory superficial thrombophlebitis. And we discussed infarct or scar is a risk factor for adenocarcinoma. So there is scar or infarct. So it is associated with scar or infarct. Since scar or infarct increases the risk of malignancy, which one? Adenocarcinoma. It is also known as scar cancer. Clear? So these are special features. Now how to remember? Can you see? Cats. Mnemonic is cats, and these are seen in adenocarcinoma. So how to remember? Mnemonic is adenocats. So adenocarcinoma is associated with clubbing, acanthosis nigricans, thrombophlebitis, scar or infarct. Now look at this tumor and tell me the type. See, this is a hilar tumor. So hilar mass. Okay. So here you can see there is hilar mass. Location is central. Okay. So hilar mass, it is central in location. So we discussed squamous cell carcinoma as well as small cell lung cancer can be central. But see here you can see that it is having necrosis and cavitation. Can you see? So what you can see here, you can see that there is necrosis and cavitation, and necrosis and cavitation, this is mainly seen in squamous cell carcinoma. So central location with necrosis and cavitation, so this is suggestive of squamous cell carcinoma. And what are the important points? First, it is central, that's why it is more common in smokers. Okay, what? It is associated with necrosis, here you saw, and cavitation. And we discussed worldwide most common type is adenocarcinoma, but the most common type in India, that is squamous cell carcinoma. So this is most common in India. Clear? Now we discussed that in squamous cell carcinoma there is increased secretion of what? PTHRP. there is increased secretion of PTH-RP, parathyroid hormone related peptide, and because of this, squamous cell carcinoma is associated with what? Hypercalcemia. So these malignancies are associated with hypercalcemia. Okay. Now 2-3 important points. We discussed that this is central, but what? Squamous cell carcinoma can be peripheral also. And we discussed sometimes there is one tumor near apex of lung involving root value C8T1. So these are Pancoast tumors. So if you see the histological type of Pancoast tumors, yes, most commonly the Pancoast tumors are squamous cell carcinoma. Which type of? Peripheral squamous cell carcinoma. So if you see the histological type, it is squamous cell carcinoma followed by adenocarcinoma followed by large cell carcinoma. So if you see histological type responsible for Pancoast tumor, that is squamous cell carcinoma. Which type? Peripheral. So how to remember? The mnemonic is Pancoast Sala. So can you see? Pancoast Sala. S means squamous cell carcinoma, A means adenocarcinoma, and LA means large cell carcinoma. And see what is the good thing about squamous cell carcinoma, that it is having best prognosis. So this is associated with best prognosis. Now see this tumor. Here you can see that there is hilar mass. Can you see? Hilar mass, okay, with mediastinal invasion. And in these malignancies, there is mediastinal lymphadenopathy. So massive hilar or mediastinal lymphadenopathy. So this is suggestive of small cell carcinoma. So what is this? This is small cell carcinoma. Okay. So we are going to discuss small cell carcinoma. So the term is self-explanatory. It's written. The cells are small. And these small cells are having little cytoplasm. That's why it is also known as oat cell. So small cells with little cytoplasm, and that's why it is also known as oat cell. So what is the other name? Oat cell. So though the cell is small, it's the most malignant type of carcinoma lung. So this is most malignant. Okay. We discussed 2-3 important things. What? That the distribution is central. So it's central, most strongly associated with smoking. Central, and it is most strongly associated with smoking. Clear? Now see here, we discussed that there is hilar mass with mediastinal or hilar lymphadenopathy with mediastinal invasion. So here you can see these tumors are having large perihilar mass. There is mediastinal invasion, and apart from this, there is massive lymphadenopathy. What kind of? Massive hilar or mediastinal lymphadenopathy. Clear? So this question was asked in a description in one of the exam, that a patient was having carcinoma lung, and when surgeon was doing dissection, there was large hilar mass with mediastinal invasion and massive hilar lymphadenopathy. So most probably what type of malignancy is this? Small cell carcinoma. Now see, near hilum, if there is large mass mediastinal lymphadenopathy, so this is the malignancy which is responsible for compression of superior vena cava. And because of compression of superior vena cava, these patients will be having superior vena cava syndrome. So the question is asked indirectly, that which malignancy is most commonly responsible for superior vena cava syndrome? It's the carcinoma lung. Which type? It is the small cell lung cancer. So because of this, what happens? There is superior vena cava syndrome. Why? Because there is superior vena cava obstruction. So we discussed that this is most malignant, but see, this is most responsive to chemotherapy, and it shows response to radiotherapy also. So two important points, that this is most responsive to chemotherapy. And generally, which agents we give? In this case, we give cisplatin and etoposide. So the agents which we give, and that is cisplatin plus etoposide. And second important point, that it shows response. So these are responsive to radiotherapy also. Another important topic related to small cell lung cancer, that what are the hormones produced? What are the hormones produced by small cell lung cancer? Okay, so first we discussed in paraneoplastic manifestations, it is going to secrete ACTH, gastrin releasing peptide. We discussed there is excessive secretion of calcitonin, arginine vasopressin, and atrial natriuretic factor. Atrial natriuretic factor. Clear? Now we discussed that because of increased ACTH, what happens? There can be Cushing. Because of calcitonin, these patients may develop hypocalcemia. And if there is increased secretion of arginine vasopressin, that is antidiuretic hormone, so what will happen? There can be SIADH, syndrome of inappropriate ADH secretion. Right? Now how to remember? See, आ गया CAA. So the mnemonic is आ गया CAA. Okay? So ACTH, gastrin releasing peptide, calcitonin, arginine, vasopressin, and atrial natriuretic factor. These are the hormones whose secretion is increased in small cell lung cancer. The fourth is large cell carcinoma. Large cell carcinoma. So we discussed that this large cell carcinoma is peripheral and it is seen in non-smokers. So first important point, that this is peripheral, and that's why it is seen in non-smokers. Now another problem with large cell carcinoma, that these are undifferentiated. And if this tumor is undifferentiated, so if this tumor is undifferentiated, what's the problem? There is early metastasis. And if there is early metastasis, what is the problem? There is poor prognosis. So there is poor prognosis. Large cell carcinoma is undifferentiated, there is early metastasis, and that's why it is associated with poor prognosis. We discussed that cavitation is seen in squamous cell carcinoma. Most commonly, cavitation is seen in squamous cell carcinoma, but cavitation can be seen in large cell carcinoma also. So here also you can see the cavitation, right? Now, if the patient is having large cell carcinoma, in these there is increased secretion of estrogen. And if there is increased secretion of estrogen, what is the problem? These patients may develop gynecomastia. Clear? So question is asked that which type of carcinoma lung is associated with gynecomastia? So it's the large cell carcinoma. How to remember? In large cell carcinoma, there is large breast in males. There is large breast in males. Clear? So there is gynecomastia. So these are important points related to various types of carcinoma lung. Now we are going to discuss Pancoast tumor. What is the other name of Pancoast tumor? It is also known as superior sulcus tumor. Okay. So Pancoast tumor, it is also known as superior sulcus tumor. Okay. It is very easy to remember. See, two things. First, the tumor is known as Pancoast tumor, right? But the manifestations because of this Pancoast tumor is known as, the clinical manifestations because of Pancoast tumor is known as Pancoast syndrome. Now we discussed, generally it is seen in peripheral malignancies, and if you see the histological types, we discussed that most commonly it is because of squamous cell carcinoma, followed by adenocarcinoma, followed by large cell carcinoma. So see the histological types, it is squamous cell carcinoma, followed by adenocarcinoma, followed by large cell. So what was the mnemonic? It's the Pancoast Sala. So it was Pancoast. Clear? Right? We discussed that mostly the squamous cell carcinoma is central, but peripheral type of squamous cell carcinoma is going to involve or invade root value of brachial plexus C8 T1, sometimes T2 also. So because of this, there is Pancoast syndrome. Now in this tumor, there is involvement of root value C8 T1, sometimes T2. So C8 T1 to T2. It represents which nerve? So it's the root value of ulnar nerve. Ulnar nerve. Clear? So you will see the manifestations in distribution of this ulnar nerve. So initially this patient is having insidious onset of pain, and that starts from upper arm. Clear? But what happens over a period of time, these patients are going to develop sensory disturbances in the forearm and hand. Which aspect? Can you see the medial aspect of forearm and hand? And if you are going to examine the hand, you will notice that there is atrophy of intrinsic muscles of hand and what? Atrophy over this hypothenar aspect. And sometimes there is involvement of cervical sympathetic trunk. And if there is involvement of cervical sympathetic trunk, these patients will be having what? Ipsilateral Horner syndrome. Okay, so these are the manifestations. So what are the manifestations? Initially there is insidious onset of pain. Insidious onset of pain. Clear? And generally it starts where? Upper arm. Okay, after that these patients are having sensory disturbances. And where exactly? The medial aspect of forearm and hand. So it's the medial aspect of forearm and hand. Clear? And if we examine, there is atrophy of intrinsic muscles of hand. So these muscles are supplied by ulnar nerve. Clear? And if you examine, there is atrophy over this hypothenar aspect. Simultaneously, these patients are also having ipsilateral Horner syndrome if there is involvement of cervical sympathetic trunk. Simple. These are the manifestations. Now how we are going to make the diagnosis? See, for Pancoast tumor, the diagnosis is made by MRI. Generally, for most of the thoracic abnormalities, the radiological investigation which is preferred, especially in case of malignancies, yes, that is CT. But here, since there is involvement of root value C8T1 of brachial plexus, so since there is involvement of nerves, the preferred investigation is MRI. So investigation of choice for diagnosis is MRI. Investigation of choice for diagnosis. Clear? And that's MRI. So how we treat? First we give preoperative radiotherapy and followed by en bloc resection of lung and chest wall. So the management, first we give preoperative radiotherapy followed by en bloc resection of lung and chest wall. En bloc resection of lung and chest wall. Okay, plus minus we go for post-operative radiotherapy or brachytherapy. So plus minus post-op radiotherapy or brachytherapy. Clear? So this is how we are going to manage the Pancoast tumors.